Good evening, all. We from Modern Eye Hospital welcome you to our webinar series. Today, we are going to have a special session on IOL power calculations and overview by Dr. C.V. Gopal Raj Garu, Chairman Vishaka Eye Hospitals, the Chairman Andhra Pradesh Scientific Committee, Andhra Pradesh Ophthalmic Society. As you all know, the IOL power calculation is becoming increasingly difficult day by day on one hand and increasingly easy on other hand. Why? Because we have more machines coming into the market like IOL Master 700, which gives you very exact readings about the keratometry, posterior curvature, axial length, and IOL power calculation and different formulas. And increasingly it's becoming difficult. Too many formulas are there now and too many situations like the situations like post-LASIK, post-refractive surgeries, post-keratoplastic patients. And now people are more demanding and people are expecting you to give good near vision and distant vision at the same time with the multifocals and the toric IOLs. With all these things in mind, so we designed this talk by the very senior most surgeon of Andhra Pradesh, Dr. C. Gopal Raj Garu, to just give a brief overview of this very difficult and tough topic. And today we have Dr. J.K. Reddy, another senior surgeon who is well versed with all the newer formulas like Barrett 2K formulas or Barrett Universal 2 formulas, and so many different formulas are there available now. So the postgraduates, the residents, and all other practitioners will get benefited from this topic. And please keep posting your questions on the chat box as usual. And at the end of the session, both Dr. Gopal Raj Garu and Dr. J.K. Reddy Garu will be able to give you answer to all of your queries so that we can give better results for our patients. Over to Dr. Gopal Raj Garu. Carry on, sir. Screen sharing.
Good evening, all of you.
Good evening, sir.
Especially the modern group of hospitals. I thank especially Dr. Gopal Krishna and Dr. P.L. Rao for giving me this opportunity and then the topic. As you rightly said, it looks easy and it's very complex. Gopal, is it clear? Voice is clear? It looks very easy, but at the same time, it's a very complex and very confusing subject. So I don't have any financial interest in the products which I'm going to mention now. So today's presentation, I will mainly keeping the postgraduates, many postgraduates will be there in today's webinar. And at the same time, I think I've seen many practitioners who are doing all the advanced IOLs also. So I should strike a right balance and I should cover the basics as well as the practical aspects equally. So today's presentation, I'll give you a brief introduction, history, and then the generation of the formulas, and then the current demanding situation of our practice patterns, and the recent advancements in the biometry, recent formulas, and the future, and then the conclusion. To start with, IOL is the one invention in 1949. Actually, it was a great, not only a great invention for the mankind, but it's a great growth engine. In financial terms, we will say a growth engine. That means it developed so many ancillaries. Because of the intraocular lens, the entire IOL industry, right from the manufacturing to research and then the development of the new designs, the entire IOL industry is derived from the intraocular lens invention. On the next step, the IOL power calculation. Just for the power calculation, there was a separate industry. All these, the biometers,
Sir, Gopalaj garu,
biometric.
sir, 1 minute. Your slides are not very clear there, sir. They're fuzzy. They're blurred. Could you do something on the on your monitor? Is it clear, sir?
Yeah, it's very clear from here. How is it now?
No, sir. The slides are not are blurry, sir. The text is not very legible.
Sir,
Can I send-
please reshare. Excuse me, sir. Please reshare the screen, sir, if possible.
Stop
Stop
and then
sending and reshare, and unselect the options which I have told you earlier, sir. If you're not presenting any video.
Sir, చెప్పండి, sir.
Yeah, this is fine, sir. Please go on with this.
How is it now?
This is very clear now, sir. It's fine now.
So the invention of the intraocular lenses, it's not only a great invention to the mankind, but it generated a lot of ancillary industry. So that's in financial terms, it's called a growth engine. So growth engine in the sense the entire IOL industry has developed because of that invention. Nowadays, it's a huge industry. And the next is the IOL power calculation. Just for the namesake, it looks like a power calculation, but there is a huge industry behind that. There are a number of scans, right from the ultrasound to the modern optical biometers. So that's a huge industry. It's developed because of the IOL invention. Next ancillary is the surgical equipment. To keep that modern IOL, they keep going. So the entire surgical microsurgery is developed because of that. And the entire craze and the high-end equipment, mainly because of the IOL invention. The another is the quality of vision, the multifocals, then the refractive cataract surgery. That is all evolved because of the IOL invention. Not only that, the demanding surgical skills, right from doing a good phacoemulsification, is because of the intraocular lens only. So this is the ancillary which was developed because of the IOL industry. Today we will restrict to IOL power calculation. Just a brief history how it started. They used to measure the power, or before that they just used to put the standard power in the eye as a standard, plus 40 or plus 30. Initially it was, they put plus 40. Then they used to calculate based on the glass refractive power. But the main limitation is very few people will have the record of the refractive status of the eye. And the next problem is the current refraction, because of the nuclear cataract, it may not coincide with his actual refraction. So those were the challenges. Then because of the availability of the A scans, then the entire game has changed towards the IOL power calculation. And then different formulas were developed, and then various generations of formulas were developed, and then they all become very useful after the advent of the optical biometers. This is a chronology before 80, standard power based calculation. From 1980 onwards, we used to use the SRK formula. In those days, not much of a computer based technology. So we used to calculate with the calculator or the pen and pencil, and then write it on the case sheet, and also based on the A constant, and then the axial length, and then the keratometer. From 1990 onwards, with the ready-made software-based A scans were developed, where all these formulas were incorporated. with the click of a button, we are now getting the end result. In 2000, they introduced the optical biometers, and then recently all these optical biometers, the basic principle of the OCT technology or the ray tracing technology was incorporated. Before going to the actual calculation, one should know the basic principles of the physics of the eye. Unless you are thorough with this, it will be very confusing, and then it is very difficult to follow the different factors that we are going to use in different formulas. This is basically a simple principle of the schematic eye. The schematic eye, yeah, we all know 3 points, anterior and then middle nodal point, and then the fovea. And then if you take the refractive index of the air as 1, and then the refractive index of the eye as 1.33. So by measuring the distance and then the power of some of the available components, we can calculate the entire power. So the entire power, it is 60 diopters, and then the corneal power is 43 diopters, and then the axial length is 22.6. So if you know out of these 4 parameters, if you know the 3 parameters, you can easily calculate the 4th parameter. That is how all these formulas will work around. The another important principle one should remember is in the optics, in the convex lens, when the ray of light is refracting from the lighter medium to a denser medium, it verges towards the center. Another important point is focal point. And if you move the convex lens in the direction of a center of the node, in the plus lens, we all know, if it is moved away from the eye, it will become stronger. If it is moved towards the fovea or towards the retina, it will become weaker. So that means each millimeter shift of the lens will varies the focal point and then the power of the lens. So these are all the basic principles one should remember, and then one should be very clear. Otherwise, it will be very confusing. But it means schematic eye, the focal point, and then the moment of the focal distance, and then the moment of the lens. If you apply that schematic mathematical eye to the biology, the anterior corneal surface that we can measure by keratometry, then the nodal point that corresponds to the lens, crystalline lens, that we can measure by anterior chamber depth or lens thickness, or the intended lens we are putting, that the design, that is whether biconvex or plano-convex, that the manufacturer will give you as a constant. And then the fovea, that is axial length, when you are measuring, you will get the foveal distance. So all these distances we can measure. Anterior corneal curvature, we can get the power. And then the location of the lens, we can measure by anterior chamber depth and then the lens thickness. So with this, all these parameters, then definitely one can calculate the power of the lens. So these are all the key elements: the keratometry, axial length, A constant, anterior chamber depth. That means from the cornea to the anterior surface of the lens, and then the crystalline lens thickness. We need these two because normally if you measure on before the cataract, the measurements, so those measurements will not coincide with your implanted intraocular lens, because finally what we want is the effective lens position. It is after the surgery where exactly the lens is going to be placed is more important than the preoperative measurements. So that is called the effective lens positions. So minimum, you should gather all these parameters to get a good calculation. So after covering those basics about the schematic eye, then how it applies to the normal eye, and then what are all the parameters we need to calculate the intraocular power. There are different methods or principles by which we can calculate or arrive at the power of the lens to be inserted. If you calculate based on the mathematical principles around the schematic eye, then those formulas are called as the theoretical formulas. That means if you know the corneal power and then the axial length, then if you derive the nodal point or the internal lens power, so that we are based on the total, if you imagine the total power as 60, so that is called the mathematical theoretical formula, or a regression based formulas. These formulas working backwards, they after calculation and then postoperatively you gather the data and then analyze the amount of error or the predictive refractive error, then we can work out backwardsly. That is called the regression methods. So theoretical method and then the regression method. And later on, after theoretical method, then we realize that is not the only way of measuring it. Then they have progressed to regression methods. Then they realize that regression method only alone we can get a good results unless we combined both the theoretical and the regression methods. So most of the formulas till the 4th generation, they use both the methods of theoretical and regression methods. Whereas recent principles like artificial intelligence and vergence are used for the calculation of the IOL formula in the recent generations. So this is how the generations of formulas were developed. In first generation, SRK, mainly the theoretical and then part of the regression models were used. Brinkhorst formula was mainly the theoretical. Then in second generation, they used the regression model. And then in third and fourth generation, they increased the inputs or the parameters. Whereas in first 2 generations, they have used only the axial length and then keratometry and then the A constant. With those 3, the prediction errors were high. So then they incorporated or used some other parameters and then they improved the results. This is how the generations were classified. IOL power calculation, first theoretical, first generation, SRK, partly regression, and then regression method, second generation. Whereas in third and fourth generation, most of the formulas use both the theoretical and regression models. And recent generation, they are using the vergence. The main disadvantage with the first generation models, formulas were they developed on mathematical principle. So they used only 3 parameters. So that's why the effective lens position was not given much importance. And that is how the most of the results were not up to the mark. And it was working okay in some limited cases, but even in the normal size eye also, they realized there are some errors. Then in the second generation, they further improved, and then they call it as SRK2 formula, where the axial length between the 22 and then 24.5. So no need of any correction factor. Whereas the axial length beyond that size, they have derived some correction factors. Whereas in short eyes, we have to add, whereas in myopic eyes, we have to subtract. So, but still the results were not up to the mark. Whereas in third generation, now they realize, at that time they realized the effectiveness of the effective calculation of the effective lens position. This effective lens position we can indirectly derive by the lens thickness and then the anterior chamber depth. And there are some other formulas like Hollandaise 2 and then the Hofer Q. They've used some other factors in arriving at the effective lens position. But still, these were not up to the mark. Then they realized before developing the fourth generation, normally what we all think that a large eye will have a simultaneously or similarly will have a large anterior segment, and short eyes will have a short anterior segment. But that rule will follow only in about 80% of the cases. And they classified the architecture of the entire globe. Then they realized there are significant percentage of the eyes where even though the eye was short, but their anterior segment was normal. Simultaneously, similarly, even though the eye was long, their anterior segment was normal. But in some incidences, even though the eye was long, but the anterior segment was short and vice versa. So only in about 80% of the time, the large anterior segment is corresponding with the large eye. Whereas in 20% of the time, either it may be small or large or vice versa. So this is the main reason why some of these, even though if you take the effective lens position, but still you could not achieve the anticipated predictive error. So then they realized, and then they thought, if you acquire some more parameters like the axial length and then lens thickness, anterior chamber depth, and then the corneal curvature. In addition to that, if you take the white limbus white to white diameter, the amount of power, and then the age, if you take some more parameters, then we can indirectly derive, and then you can predict the ratio of between the anterior and posterior segment in each eye. That is how this Hollandaise 2, Aegis, and other formulas were developed. But most of the difficulties were overcome with these third and fourth generation formulas. Even now, I would suggest you don't have to worry that if you are following one of the third or fourth generation formulas, even SRKT still holds good now, will give a very good results. So don't get confused by all these generations and number of formulas. Just remember only 4 things. In normal size eyes and in large eyes, SRKT holds good. Normal and large eyes, SRKT, one formula. In short eyes, use Hofer Q. In post-LASIK eyes, use Haigis. That's all. Only remember these 3. If you follow this and if you take adequate care, then most of the time we will be on the spot. But there are many recent formulas. Why these recent formulas came into existence, I will tell you in the next slide. These recent formulas could overcome most of the difficulties. These recent formulas are mainly the Barrett and Hill RBF formulas, on the Olsen formulas. These formulas became existent because of the newer methods of cataract surgery, and also the new equipment are available now by which we can acquire some more sophisticated parameters, And there are a number of new softwares that are available by which we can arrive at a reasonably good outcome. So with this, definitely the predicting errors were very less and very easily we can calculate with all the newer biometers. So this is another simple and easy summarizing all the generation formulas, and then mainly using the right formula for the right case. So just remember only three. Use SRKT for normal and large eyes, and then Hofer cube for short eyes, and then Haigis for the post-refractive, and reserve only Barrett and then Hill RBF. If you have the equipment which have the access of this, you can use it. Or if you are planning to, or shifting to, or starting to use the premium IOLs, definitely you should try these newer formulas. On the other hand, why we were forced to use these recent formulas and then look into critically analyze the previous formulas. Currently, the cataract surgery is a refractive cataract surgery. And there is no scope for any error in the prediction. And more toric refractive IOLs we are using. And on the other hand, luckily we have a good equipment to get most of the inputs to get the best results. And also there is enough literature, published literature available in aiming at the low prediction errors. Among this, the very new concept is but it's not a new concept. It is there since years. Anterior and posterior corneal astigmatism is curvature is not the same, but there are no equipment which can measure the posterior astigmatism curvature separately. So we used to derive the average K from the measuring from the anterior corneal curvature. And the new concept is in general, the posterior cornea has a half a diopter of against the rule effect on the astigmatism. You just remember that it has an half a diopter of against the rule effect on the anterior on the total corneal astigmatism. And based on this principle, Barrett has changed the entire the entire calculation scenario after he introduced the Barrett toric calculator. Before this, some of our cases used to either undercorrect or overcorrect, because with the rule astigmatism and against the rule astigmatism, unless if you don't take the posterior corneal astigmatism into consideration, we may end up in either overcorrection or undercorrection, especially when you are using a toric IOL. So before the advent of the newer the biometers by which we can measure the corneal astigmatism, or the pentacam by which we can measure the posterior corneal astigmatism, he has derived a formula, that is the Barrett toric calculator, where he has used the concept of about half the diopter of the against the rule effect on the overall corneal astigmatism. But luckily, after the newer equipment by which we can derive the actual K, so he has developed one more formula that is called the Barrett True K, or Barrett True K Universal 2 formula. If you see this graph on the first column, so there is an anterior astigmatism of 0.59 diopters at 90 degrees. So if you don't take the posterior corneal astigmatism into consideration, then the corneal astigmatism effect on the cornea is 0.53, same. But if you nullify this with the posterior corneal astigmatism, they'll end up in 0.24. So that means with the rule astigmatism, if you go by the same, you will end up in overcorrection. And similarly, the other axis, if you don't consider this, you will may end up in undercorrection. So this is the best example of why one should concentrate on the posterior corneal curvature or the posterior corneal astigmatism separately. These things are very important when you are doing the toric IOLs. Not only toric and then multifocal IOLs. Whereas in case of the monofocal IOLs, this may not be of much effect. Once if you concentrate on the exact axial length and then the keratometry reading, most of the time we can reasonably good results. The advancements in the biometry, we started with the A scans, measuring only the axial length, then the A scans with the acquisition and then multiple formulas incorporated in it, then the optical biometers with tracing technology, now the optical biometers with subsource technology, all these with a very good high degree of accuracy. The modern biometers where we can measure the anterior and posterior corneal curvatures separately. I already told you earlier we used to derive the total corneal power indirectly by calculation from the anterior corneal surface. Now anterior corneal surface is calculated with this reference points. Earlier we used to concentrate around 3 millimeters of the circle. Now with multiple points and then hexagonal pattern and toric pattern, we can measure exactly the 2.3 or 1.6 mm optical zone, the topography, the curvature power we can easily measure. The foveal center can be checked with the recent biometers. All these parameters are required in modern formulae to measure the power. This is the IOL master, how it uses swept source with a telecentric keratometry, and then we can acquire K1 and K2, and also we can acquire the total K1 and K2, and then where it measures the anterior and posterior curvature separately, and it will tell you it will give you both the readings, both before the total K and then after the total K. Axial length, corneal thickness, everything we can with a B-scan base. So we are very much sure whether the ray is passing through the fovea or not. And also indirectly we can know the status of the fovea. These are some of the results where the Barrett, if we apply the Barrett true K or the total true K with the total K, so definitely the prediction errors are very less. This is another Lenstar recent equipment. This also derives but it won't derive the posterior K, but it takes the T-cone toric platform by the curvature of the anterior and then oblique measurements. It can derive the posterior corneal curvature, and it uses the Barrett toric calculator and Hill RBF. This is another recent formula which was incorporated in the Lenstar. See the advancements in the formulas like Barrett Universal 2, where it doesn't consider the posterior corneal curvature, whereas Barrett toric, it considers the posterior corneal curvature. Barrett indirectly, whereas in Barrett TK Universal 2 and Barrett TK toric, it takes the directly acquired posterior corneal curvature, total corneal curvature, and then gives the formula. So definitely this is far superior than the SRKT. Hill RBF, the RBF means it's a radial basis activation function. This is basically online or basically it's based on the artificial intelligence, where the more than 12,000 eyes readings were incorporated, and based on our inputs, it calculates and it measures, and then it will tell you the power. That is, but personally I don't have much experience on the RBF, but we were using the Barrett TK since last 1 year, and definitely the results were far better than the SRKT. The other, for the future, that is ORA, the OptiWave refractive analyzer. This uses the wavefront aberrometry data and measurement and analysis of the refractive power of the eye. That means it's a real time, intraoperatively, after finishing the phaco, then you fill the chamber and then you activate, which is attached to the microscope. So it's a wavefront analyzer on the table. It generates the wavefront, and then through that it will give you the power, including the astigmatism axis, to be inserted to get the emmetropia. This is how it functions. From the microscope it can be attached, and then it will send you the wave, and then on reflected wave it captures and will give you the real time, and then suggests the amount of power. Here you can see the 14 diopters, cylinder, axis, everything it suggests. So you need to have this, but there are some of the limitations are there, and I don't know whether it is for the future. That we have to wait and see. So to conclude, we progressed from the conventional methods to automated calculations, the ultrasound contact and immersion methods to non-contact optical methods, and the post-op predictive errors were now to a very, very acceptable level. We evolved from generations of formulas with the incorporation to an artificial intelligence, but still we can get a reasonably good results if we take adequate care in gathering the parameters and acquiring the parameters and using the right formula for the right case with any biometer. But once if we are using the advanced or premium IOLs, definitely you need to adopt to the newer methods of the calculation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Gopal Raj Garu, for that excellent presentation of this very difficult and tough topic. I think I can assure all the postgraduates, if you just go through this talk once again on the YouTube, and you can make a very good answer for your Asia question in theory paper. Because Sir has made it very clear, starting from his early days in the fellowship, when he was doing a 12mm incision with 5 sutures, and now with a 1.8 or micro incisions with all the new formulas and new generation of IOLs. So I thank Dr. Gopal Raj Garu for his excellent presentation. And I would like to invite Dr. J.K. Reddy Garu to just add a few more comments on this before we go into the question answer session. Dr. J.K. Reddy, sir, please add a few more comments.
Yes, Gopi, thank you for the invitation. And Dr. Gopal Raj is given a very good talk, and it's a very complicated talk. Many times sometimes they have called me, invited me. I said no, they give me something else, some surgical talk. Don't listen. This is a very complex one. It looks simple when you use a scan biometer, but when you practically do on counseling and do patients, then you know the real problems of this all calculations. But as it is now, I use, as Dr. Gopal Raj said, I rely only on SRKT, and now we are shifting mostly to Barrett 2. I want to shift all my practice to Barrett 2 online, so we are trying to find the optometrist who can sit there and just enter data properly. Because it's a manual entry. The biggest problem with the manual entering is flat K, deep K. They get confused. So the opposite, you enter it, you put an implant, exactly opposite power printout, and the astigmatism will become double when you are putting toric. It's a common error. Everywhere it happens. So that's why we need a real person when you manually enter. If you get automatic printout like some IOL Master 700, it's excellent. But I think IOL Master 700, all these good machines they are giving now, Barrett 2 incorporated in it. But another thing I have doubt, you got IOL Master 700, and Ravi is also maybe adding. How it measures the posterior corneal curvature, whether it's by OCT or by light reflex. No idea.
And,
IOL master, Raju, Gopi, can I tell you?
please,
Yeah.
yeah, correct.
See, the IOL Master 700 entire technology is different. It's a OCT swept source OCT based, not a SD OCT. It is a swept source OCT based. So swept source OCT based is like a B scan in a other ray tracing and all. It gives a multiple scans in 6 to 8 meridians. Whereas in swept source OCT, it generates thousands of scans in all the meridians. And with that, it can generate both the anterior and posterior surface separately. So it can measure the posterior curvature independently.
Yeah, Cepsos, yeah, I understand. I am not using Cepsos Tomy, but in Tomy, they take from Placido. Just because Tomy is very strong in topography, they take a topography, small topography of the center 6 millimeters, they take a captometry based on topography. I think then you were, from what you are telling for the point, that the posterior corneal curvature is taking from a OCT based scan, like we take for a anti-segment scan OCT with a anti-segment scan. But the anterior curvature also OCT based, and we are using the other also the LED dots. So 30, 32 dots, 52 dots. There also they are calculating. So they are taking a little bit tricky. I think the posterior curvature is only by OCT. There is no other way they can do it. So they are combining that.
Shall we go to the answer?
Yes, question. Yeah.
So before going to the question answer session, I would like to appreciate the attendance or participation of Dr. G. Narendra Reddy Garu from Kurnool Medical College. He was one of my teachers during my post-graduation. Thank you, sir, for attending our session. So the first question for today's topic is from Dr. Lalita Sivajyoti. She wants to know post-PKP for IOL surgery, which is the best formula for IOL power calculations. J.K. Reddy, sir.
It's straightforward only, post-PKP. If it's a long axial length, as Dr. Gopal has pointed out, SRKT, and the SRKT, even the long axial length, if the power is less than 14 millimeters or some 14 to 12 millimeters, again it will undercorrect. You have to use one diopter mode length, SRKT. SRK2 is better, 658 hours. SRK2 is better. SRKT undercorrects 645 power. And higher power, SRKT is okay up to 23, 24 diopters. After that, 25, 27, after that, Hopper Q is better. So it depends upon what power comes. Main problem with the post-PKP is a high astigmatism.
So another question from Dr. Nikhil. He wants to know whether the ray tracing technology is accurate for calculating IOL powers. If so, can it be used for the case of post-LASIK, post-RK? In other words, he wants to know what is the best formula for post-LASIK and post-RK.
Post-RK is exactly, they say it is almost like a normal eye, because both anterior curvature, posterior curvature. The only problem with post-RK is getting an accurate K reading on the visual axis, because the RK forms such a small visual axis. Measuring the exact K in that, you need a good topographer. Then you have to put a mouse in the center, then take the K reading. Not average K reading captometry from topographer. You take the mouse, put in the center of the map, and see the flattest area and take that reading as K. Otherwise, it's same. Post-LASIK, there are many formulas. If you go to the ACRS data, they will give at least 16 to 17 formulas, accepted formulas. I prefer, again, Barrett 2K formula. Because even that gives excellence, even without, you don't need to know preoperative value.
So Dr. Gopal sir, this question is for you. How to calculate IOL power in posterior staphyloma eyes with posterior staphyloma? Gopal sir.
Yeah, calculating the IOL, the axial length in posterior staphyloma with A scan, one should be very, very careful. So we have to be doubly sure that it is passing through the visual axis or the fovea. So we have to take 2 to 3 readings and then then only we have to confirm if we are using the ultrasound. But that is the, if you are using an optical ray tracing, most of the time you can get a very good result. And that is another major advantage with the IOL Master 700, where you can live on a cross section on a B scan, you can see the section, whether the ray is passing through the posterior staphyloма or through the macula or not. We can easily judge based on that. So best is the IOL Master 700.
Another question is, how to calculate IOL power in a silicon filled eyes?
Yeah, that is that is one point. I think I've not stressed much. So
Yes.
when you are using the ultrasound or the ray tracing, the refractive index of the medium is important. So the refractive index in the normal eye, that is why all these biometers will have a modes: pseudophakia mode, then phakic mode, then total cataract, and then silicon filled eye. So in a silicon filled eye, you have to change the velocity, the refractive index. So luckily, most of the modern optical biometers will have that mode. So by changing that, we can get exactly the reading.
Sir, another question from Dr. Subramanyeshwari. So she wants to know how to calculate in the pediatric age group, the IOL powers in pediatric age group.
Yeah,
Gopala, sir.
if they are cooperating, then it's like an adult only. If they are not cooperating, then you have to do under the anesthesia, EUA, anesthesia under examination, and then you can use the ultrasound only. The optical biometer is difficult, and here again I'm telling you, if you don't have an optical biometer, we should not feel that we are doing injustice. If you use the immersion technique along with the ultrasound biometry, you can definitely reasonably good results with the immersion technique.
So another question from Dr. Nidhi, how to modify the IOL power in case of a posterior capsular rupture and if the placement is in sulcus rather than in the bag?
Yeah, all our calculations, posterior chamber IOL and the A constant which they are giving, they all presume that the lens is in the bag. So if it is not in the bag, if the lens is moving anteriorly, then you have to reduce each millimeter by 0.5 diopters. If you are going posteriorly, then you have to increase. That is simple. The formula or the simple method. If you are putting in the sulcus, if the in the bag power is 22, if you are putting it in the sulcus, put 21 only. If you are using an iris clip, reduce by another 1. If you are putting the anterior chamber, reduce by another 2. So like that, if you are putting 100% in the bag optic, then you can go ahead with the same. Suppose if you are putting it in the sulcus, you reduce by wherever you are putting or what type of lens you are using.
So another interesting question is from Dr. Krishna Teja. While using ultrasound biometer, are there any possibilities of different IOL power results while checking within the same patient, undilated pupils, fully dilated, or irregular dilated pupils? The size of the pupil, does it matter in IOL power calculation while doing a biometer? That is the precise question. Gopala, sir.
Mainly, here the point is, leave alone the pupil. When you are measuring with the ultrasound, there are 2 areas where we can make an error. One is inadvertently pressing the cornea. Especially when we are reaching the presbyopia, if you do a scan, we inadvertently press the cornea. Then you will get a false reading. The second one is there is an LED light in that, the fixation target. In a normal, if not a very dense patients, they can easily, we should ask them to fix that light so that it will pass through the fovea. Suppose if it is not passing through the fovea, it is hitting the nasal or the temporal side, invariably our axial lens will be different. That is the reason why in very dense cataracts, we have to be very, very careful. So pupil size, if you dilate too much, they may have some difficulty, but that red light generally, even if you dilate, there should not be any problem. So dilatation of the pupil may not affect. Once if we can fix the target properly, then we can definitely get a good results.
Thank you, sir. Dr. J.K. Reddy, sir, this question is for you. Among the new generation formulas, which one is the best for the small eyes of axial length less than 21 millimeters? This is from Dr. Savanthi Reddy.
Hooper Q and Barrett. Both we are using. Hooper Q and Barrett. Basically, take Barrett for everything. For short axial length, especially not 21, you take around 18, 16. We really call anophthalmos in very young children and adults also. So we cross-verify with Hooper Q.
Yeah, another question you already answered from Dr. Ashish Kedia. He wants to know, can I use the Barrett TK formula for all axial lengths?
Yes.
More or less that, yeah.
Yeah. Barrett has got everything, 2K and Barrett 2, toric. So whatever your patient, you take it appropriate.
Yeah. Another question from Dr. Vishnu Teja in a real life situation. So in case of a nucleus drop, when VR surgeon immediately manages at the table with vitrectomy done by VR surgeon, does it affect the final IOL power to be implanted? Or shall we go ahead with the routine IOL power which we plan for regular surgery?
So you are putting in the sulcus most probably, in the case of PCR. You putting in the sulcus means, as Dr. Razu has nicely explained, because the lens is a bit front than in the back. So you need a 1.5 diopters less power. But in the case you are not doing an optic capture, you got a nice small anterior capsule, rhexis, and you are doing an optic capture, then especially when you do a vitrectomy, put the same lens power as you got it in the back.
Yeah, I think we came to the conclusion of all the questions. Now I would like to ask Dr. P.L. Rogar, because he made some comments on the chart, because I want him to speak on those comments. Satish, please unmute Dr. P.L. Rogar.
Hello.
Yeah, Lakshmana, please carry on.
Raju.
Good evening. Yeah, tell him.
Good evening. See, suppose there are some people who are not having the pentacam like that, topography. Can you identify the posterior float in the OCT?
No, posterior float in the OCT, no, we cannot identify. Only you need only 3 technologies to identify posterior float. One is that slit scan technology. The other is the sham plug imaging. So these are the 2 technologies by which are the dot scan, that orb scan technology. Pentacam, orb scan, and then the sham plug method. By only these 3 techniques, we can identify the posterior float. All the others, indirectly measuring the cornea anterior surface and then the thickness in different areas, we can generate the maps. But that's all indirectly generated, but not directly we cannot measure.
So with the OCT, we cannot
Thank
find
you,
out.
With the SD OCT, we cannot. With the swept source OCT, we can.
Right now with the OCTs, they are just giving keratometry. They are not giving topography. So once they come with a OCT topography, which is going to be featured within central 8 millimeters, beyond 8 millimeters of OCT cannot take that right now. Up to limbus they cannot do. So that's how they are stuck. They are 4 years they are trying to develop with the data topography. They are not able to do it. Once they do a topography, then they can develop whatever Pentacam gives. All they can give all the values with that. So right now they reached a stage where with a Swapsos OCT and with corneal scan, they are able to give posterior keratometry, anterior keratometry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you, Dr. Reddy. Gopalaj garu. Thank you, Dr. Pillarao. So we had a very good interactive session today. I think in summary, the IOL power calculation is becoming very difficult these days with new equipment are there, but new formulas are there. And the why difficult is we have too many demanding patients and too premium IOL practice is increasing day by day. So I request all the postgraduates to just go through the YouTube again and just entire lecture is very good and just take note of it and that you will be able to answer all your questions in your PG exam. And I thank you all for participation. And I'm reminding you about another webinar tomorrow at the same time, 5:30. The topic is venous occlusions by Dr. Satish, Modern Retina Center, Vijayawada. Please do join us tomorrow evening at 5:30 p.m. same time on Zoom. Thank you all for your participation. We are signing off.
Thank you, JK. Thank you, Modern Group.
Thank you, Razu.
Enjoyed the session.